So I've spent the last week and a half obsessing over how to make physical PC games to replicate the cartridge-like experience of classic game systems or the Switch on my PC because I just really love cartridges and I love the experience and the seamlessness of it. And I mean, while PC is perfectly seamless as it is, I like to overcomplicate things and make physical cartridges, and I have figured it out. I have made it happen on a couple different storage mediums, and it is as seamless as I had hoped it would be once set up. It is so cool. We can pop these in, the game will load, and you can enjoy it and play it, and it's fantastic if you are a fan of cartridges like myself. And again, this is completely unnecessary and a little over the top, but I absolutely love it, and today I'm going to show you how to do it. So there are multiple ways you could go about doing this type of project, but obviously speed is going to be a priority if you're doing newer stuff, or if you only care about the older stuff, then it's not as big of a deal. But let's start with SD cards here. This is where I began this project with, and as you can see, I've made labels for a couple of them already. But I decided to go with SanDisk ones. They have their stupid little quick flow proprietary thing that works with their dedicated card readers. And it has been really nice. You actually get the speeds advertised on these cards using this reader, which has been really cool. And so for my Mass Effect trilogy here in Final Fantasy 13, those are 200 megabyte a second read speeds on those cards, and it is giving me those. It is awesome. But just some quick pros for the SD cards. They're a lot smaller. Looks really cool. They're kind of like Switch cartridges, and you can get nice little carrying cases to put them in, so like looks really nice. But no matter which method you choose, like you're going to be having a lot of extra space if you're just doing one game per card like I am. But it is a lot less cost effective to go the SD card route for the bigger size cards. So like this 128 gig card here was like $20. And you could get the equivalent of that in a SATA SSD for about 13 to 15, so you could save money. But you are really going to need to make sure that you get the speeds you are advertised to get. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot slower on load times and could cause issues in games. But for older games that I have on here, like 120 megabytes a second is more than enough for the era of games that I'm going for here. You can see I'm going for a lot of Gen 6, Gen 7 stuff, and that is absolutely fine there. Now, as for the SATA SSD route, I really like this. They're kind of like more cartridge feeling, which is really cool. And then if you combine that with this Sabrent reader here that I picked up to try this out with, it's really nice. It does feel like a cartridge. Like it just loads in there, and once I get some labels made up for the front and backs of these, like this is gonna look pretty cool. But benefit of this method is SATA SSDs are a lot faster than SD cards, so you're going to be getting 550 megabytes a second out of these versus 250 megabytes peak out of a 2 terabyte card for this reader. So again, not very cost effective. So this is probably going to be my preferred method moving forward, even though I really love how compact and small those are, but this is just a lot more cost effective for a silly little project like this, and definitely guarantees more performance. And again, that's really cool, and it still works exactly the same where I can have this plugged in. I just pop this in and it will launch a game and can begin playing. It's really fun. But I do have links in the description below to the equipment that I am using in this video if you are interested in copying along. So for example, the SD card reader if you want to do that route, or if you'd like to do the SATA SSD route, I got a link to that one down below as well. And if speed is really a concern to you, you can even do this with M.2 NVMe and SATA drives. I don't want to do that route just because it makes it a little harder for labeling, but that is also an option if you're interested. And again, for the SSD route, I am using the Silicon Power SSDs. They're relatively cheap, they have good read speeds, and they work perfectly for this project as is, so it's really nice. And on the SD card route, I am using a couple of SanDisk Extreme Pros that have a 200 megabyte a second read speed. Again, these are more expensive. And then I'm also using the SanDisk Ultras at 120 megabytes a second read speed. Again, links to all this will be in the description below if you're interested, but you can use whatever you want. This is just what I'm using in this project, and it is performing exactly as advertised, which is exactly what we need out of it. But now for actually turning one of these devices into a cartridge-based game. We're going to start with Steam games because they are fairly seamless and straightforward, not a lot of effort required to do this. So we're going to turn this 256 gig SSD into a cartridge for Halo Master Chief Collection through Steam. So we're just going to pop that into our reader here. So I already have this SSD formatted. You can see it right here. It's showing up as local disk G. And so it's good to go. But if for any reason you need to format your SSDs to work, if it shows up here, you can just right click, format, select your storage type. But if it doesn't show up here, you could right click on the Windows Start menu, Disk Management, and it should pop up a box here that says Initialize. You can initialize that as GPT or MBR. Shouldn't matter if you're just using it on one computer. If you're using it on multiple, it still really shouldn't matter if you're doing it on modern systems, but if somehow you have a game that will work on older Windows OSs as well as current ones, you will want to choose MBR. But as you can see, it's right here. It's already initialized, so it's good to go. But from here, we're just going to open up Steam. All right, so here we are, Halo Master Chief Collection. So now we just need to add our new cartridge, air quotes, to our Steam install folder. So we're just going to open up the settings, storage. We're going to add a drive. There it goes. All right, so we're just going to add in that G drive. And there we go. So now it is able to be seen by Steam. Perfect. So I'm going to close out of this. So under my Master Chief Collection store or game library here, properties, installed files, move install folder, and we're going to move it over to our air quotes cartridge. And this is the same process whether you're using SD cards or SATA SSDs or USB NVMe drives, whatever you want to use to make your cartridge with. Like, it's going to be the same process here. But we're just going to wait for it to do its thing. All right, now that that is finished moving, we can go ahead and confirm that it will run as we expect it to. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and load up a campaign here real quick. And awesome. Yep, that's working exactly like I'd want it to. No issues detected. Perfect. All right, now let's go ahead and cover something from GOG real quick. So I'm going to do this one on an SD card. So I manually mapped my SD card reader to be drive A under the disk management options. So I went down here and I selected the SD card and I changed it to A, and that has kind of made it so every time I put an SD card in, it just makes it an A drive, which is really nice. The only problem with manually changing the drive letter is that Windows might not always respect that change. So you kind of want to just leave everything as default, so that way it will typically go to the last drive letter available. So if you only have like 2 hard drives in your computer, every time you put something in, it'll be an E drive. I have quite a few drives on mine, so that's why mine's G. But I made the SD card reader A drive, and it has stayed that way. It's been respecting that, which has been really nice. But again, come in here and change that if you want to. Just note that it might cause issues if Windows decides not to respect that. But like with my SSD method that I just showed off with Steam, you are going to want to format either your SD card or another SSD before doing this, so that way it's an NTFS or exFAT format. FAT32 is not going to be great because you might have a game that has larger than 4 GB file sizes. So just go ahead and get that card formatted before starting. All right, now that that format is complete, so now we just need to grab one of our GOG offline installers. So for today's example, I'm going to be using Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway. So we're just going to go ahead and launch that offline installer. You could also do this through GOG Galaxy, what have you, but I prefer not to have an extra launcher when it comes to my GOG games. And so we're just going to click on Options here. And we're going to browse for a location to install it. So we're going to choose our cartridge, air quotes, to install it to. And I like to create a desktop icon for later purposes, and I'll show you why later. But we're just going to go ahead and tell it to install and let it do its thing. Alright, with that installed, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that. And we can go in here and you can see the install folder. And so again, I like to make that shortcut so I can paste it into the root of the air quotes cartridge. And again, we can make sure that everything's working as expected. The recording looks silly. It's showing up fine on my screen, but in the recording, it's up there in the top left corner. That's great. All right, so not going to worry about that too much right now. But there we go. So we can do everything we want to do with this. So, like, let's crank this sucker up. Awesome. Hey, there we go. It fixed it. Awesome. Anyway, so there we go. So, of course, we could go and, like, find any other patches and mods and stuff that we want to add to the game as needed, but just for demonstration purposes here, like, we could see that it is running off that SD card as expected, so that's really nice. So, there we go. No, we don't need to worry about compatibility settings. It worked fine. Stop it. Alright, so one last method that I'm going to show off because I've been using it is getting old disk-based games installed. So for today's example, I'm going to be using Star Wars Episode 1 Battle for Naboo. Alright, so I went ahead and popped in a fresh SD card, got that formatted, and then we got the game disk inserted in right here, and it loaded up its auto run. And unfortunately for a lot of these older games, the install program doesn't work on modern Windows operating systems. Sometimes they will, but other times you'll see that, hey, it can't work. It's a 16-bit application, it's not going to work. And that's fine. Yeah, it's all angry now. Yeah, we know. Chill out. So for cases like this, I like to head over to the PC Gaming Wiki, and I can search up the game in question. There we go. We'll find Star Wars Episode 1 Battle for Naboo. So, one of the nice things about older games, they usually save to their install folder, so this will be a truly portable cartridge if you have a registry entry to install into other PCs you want to use it on, of course. This game does require the registry entry. But we scroll down here, we can see issues fixed, game does install on 64-bit versions of Windows. So there is a custom installer that you could download, but unfortunately it looks like that has been deleted. Alright, so I was able to find this installer on the My Abandonware website, so we're just going to go with that. Alright, so here is our fixed installer for 64-bit Windows. So we're just going to get that extracted. Alright, so we're just going to get that installed. Select my CD drive. Now we're going to tell it where to install it, so I want to put it onto that SD card. Alright, and then it said I needed to configure this stuff real quick, so let's go ahead and do that. Gonna set it to 640 by 480 for now. Alright, so now that we got that set, just gonna go into the install folder here. And I don't want this to need the disk to run, so we're just going to apply a We're just going to apply a little patch to it real quick. There we go. Now if I take out my Battle for Naboo CD, there we go. Sorry about the screen not doing what it's supposed to over there on the recording. But there we go. So now it is running without the CD from my SD card. So perfect. And now I could go through and do all kinds of extra stuff to this if I want to, like actually upres this to 4K with DG Voodoo. But just for demonstration purposes, you can see that this is now running. But since I want to make this a truly portable install for Battle for Naboo, I'm just going to back up the registry entry here. So it's located at this address. So I can just tell it to export that. And I'm going to put it in my USB drive as Battle for Naboo. So now I can put this SD card in any computer, import that registry entry, or not because it was the same name as the folder, derp. Alright, fine. There we go. There we go. So now I can copy that, or import that into any computer I put this in, and that game will work. But I also just want to make a quick shortcut to this. There we go. So that's it as far as making your physical cartridges go, but part of why I wanted to do this project in the first place is to have it be very seamless. I want to be able to insert these and have them run. Unfortunately, Windows got rid of the ability to auto-run things from USB back with Windows Vista, Windows 7, and so you need to use a secondary program called APO USB Auto-Run to make such a project happen. Unfortunately, this does introduce a security risk of if you insert a malicious USB drive into your computer, it will auto-run it. So definitely need to be aware of anything that happens, and if you decide to continue on with this project to have it auto-run, you accept those risks. You have decided for yourself to do it. But if you accept the risks involved with being able to auto-run USB sticks again, like, cool. Let's continue on. But you can download the latest release of APO USB Auto-Run from this GitHub page, so link to this will be in the description below. So once you get it downloaded, just get it installed. So we're going to start with Battle for Naboo, because that's the last one we set up, but we're going to make this auto-run every time you insert it into your computer. So now that you have APO USB Auto-Run installed, you should have a little thing down here in your toolbar that's APO USB Auto-Run. So if we right-click on this, Tools, you can see that there is an Auto-Run INF builder. So we're going to select that. And we're going to expand the Auto-Run INF option here. And so the first thing we can do is click on Icon. And if we click on Select, we can go into our USB drive. And we can select any executable and take its icon for ourselves here. So we're going to go ahead and take that one. And that'll be the icon that'll show up on our USB drive now. And then we could change the drive labels. So we'll just name this Battle for Naboo. And we don't really need to worry about the rest of it for now. So under Auto-Run INF, we're going to click on that, and we're going to tell it to save because we have to save it before it'll let us build it. So we're just going to go ahead and save that into the same directory that we're working on here. So we're just going to name it test for the heck of it. Why not? And now we're going to click on the build option. And it's going to ask us to select a USB drive. So if you're doing this on external SATA SSDs, you're going to have a separate USB drive plugged in to install the auto-run to initially. Then you can copy it over to the SATA drive. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So we're just going to go ahead and click on that one, click OK. And there we go. So now it has a built-in auto-run for us, so we can close out of that. So now we just need to edit our auto-run INF to launch our Battle for Naboo shortcut here. So we're going to just right-click on it, click edit. You could also just double-click it. It should work just fine. But on the auto-run section here, down at the bottom, we're going to type in open equals, and then we need to type in the name of our shortcut. So we're going to do BFN, and I believe the extension for shortcuts is LNK. We're going to go ahead and save that and give it a shot. If that doesn't work, I'm going to do something else.
But now we can go ahead and eject our USB drive, or SD card rather. All right. So now we're going to take that out, put it back in. But there we go. So now I popped it back in. You can see it's put the logo there and changed it to Battle for Naboo. And now it is launching our game. So yep, the LNK was correct. So there we go. Perfect. So there we go. Battle for Naboo will now auto-launch every time I insert this SD card. So really cool stuff. I still need to finish modding this install to make it all pretty and stuff, but there we go. There's the basic concept. It's really cool. Alright, so now let's go ahead and build an auto run for our Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway install that we did earlier using GOG. So I'm just going to shorten the shortcut here to just HH to make our lives easier. But same process, make sure you have APO USB auto run installed. And then we're just going to right click on that, Tools, Auto Run INF Builder. We're going to select our icon here, so we can just select any of the icons. So if you want to have the circular GOG icon, or if you want to go into the binaries and find the square one, you can do that. So I think I'm going to go with the circular one, just for the heck of it. There we go. And then for the drive label, we're just going to name this Hell's Highway. There we go. We don't need to worry about any of this other stuff, really. We're going to save it into our USB drive as test, just for the heck of it. And then we're going to build it. And again, you have to save the target device as a USB drive. So again, for SSD stuff, you are going to need to have a second USB drive. And again, I'll show you that here in just a minute when we make an auto run for Halo. But I'm just going to click on OK. Here we go. Now, same deal as with our Battle for Naboo one. We're going to edit the auto run. Down here at the bottom, we're just going to add the line open equals, and I named that shortcut HH. We're going to go hh.lnk for shortcuts. We're going to save that, exit out. Going to eject the USB, eject the SD card rather. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and insert that back in. And you can see that it has applied all of the information here. And then the game will auto boot. And there it is. Perfect. And so again, you can apply any mods and anything else you want to do to these games at will, just like you would on a normal PC install. But it's just really cool to be able to auto run them and do things like that with it. Like, I'm sorry, I love this so much. It's so nice. All right. But now for our Steam games. So to auto run Steam games is pretty much the same process, but we are going to need to make one extra file, and you can see it up in my corner here. I called it start.bat because Steam is very interesting when it comes to its game libraries. So if I were to open up Steam, go into my library right here, I don't have the hard drive with Halo installed on it inserted right now. So it's showing that it's there. And so to get these to reliably work with Steam, you want to restart Steam every single time you insert one. So now we can go back into Steam. You can see that Halo is not showing up as installed, but if I were to insert the SSD that I installed it to, you could see that it dynamically sees that it is there. But if I were to unplug this and then plug in another drive with the Steam game that uses the same game library drive letter, it's not going to show up. It's going to mess up. So for this purpose, I created this bat file. And so basically, it starts off and it terminates the Steam executable. And then it will start your Steam game, which then relaunches Steam for you, thus allowing it to see the proper game library drive and then launch. As I was mentioning earlier, for SSD cartridges, you are going to need to have another USB drive inserted in to save your auto run to initially. So I'm just going to go ahead and get one plugged in now. All right, so got that USB drive plugged in. It's just showing up as H. That's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and get Halo to auto boot for us. So first off, once again, make sure you have APO USB auto run installed, and then you can bring it up in your toolbar. Go to Tools, Auto Run INF Builder. Icon, we're going to select our SSD with Halo on it here. Maps, Common, Halo Master Chief Collection. MCC binaries. Let's find, there we go. There we go. Perfect. All right, drive label, Halo MCC. Perfect. So again, we're going to save that into the same drive as the game. I just like to name them test. That's my thing. All right, but now we're going to go ahead and build it. And so again, like I said, you have to have it on a USB drive. It doesn't recognize external SSDs as a USB drive. So we're just going to build it into this USB drive. So now that it's here, we're just going to go ahead and cut that out and paste it into our SSD cartridge. There we go. So now we are going to build our start.bat file to kill Steam and launch into Halo to reopen it. So to do this, I'm already exited out of Steam, unfortunately. So the easiest way of doing this is to make a desktop shortcut for your Steam game that you have on the cartridge. So if you go into Manage, you can add desktop shortcut. And then we can paste this shortcut into the root of our cartridge drive. And again, you can just shorten this to make it easier to work with. And then we're going to need to create a start.bat file. So I'm going to have the contents of this file right here pasted into the description below, so that way you can just copy it into your own start.bat file. But anyway, to do this, you're going to right click, new folder, or new text document rather, sorry. Just name it whatever you want. I use start. And then we need to give it the bat extension. So if you can't see extensions, you need to go into your view, show, and have file name extensions checkmarked, so that way you can have it be a proper file. But anyway, so once you have that made, just right click on it, click on edit, and then you can copy the text that I have in the description below that will look just like this. So you just copy that and then paste it into your start.bat file. And now we just need to add in our executable path for the game. So make note of your drive letter. So just like that. And then you're going to type in your shortcut name. And I believe for Steam it is HTM for the extension. Not sure off the top of my head. That's okay, because we can run it and see if it works. Nope, that is not correct. Let's see. Was it URL? I think it might be URL, actually. There it is. So yes, it was URL for the extension on Steam shortcuts. There we go. So as you can see, that bat file is now opening up Halo. It killed Steam first. And Halo is now launching like it's supposed to. So there we go. That is now loaded. Perfect. We're just going to go ahead and quit out of that. Now that we know the bat file works, we're ready to add it to our auto run INF. So now that we got the bat file made, we're going to open up the auto run INF. And down at the bottom, just like with our previous two examples, we're going to open equals start.bat. We're going to save that. And now we're going to give it a test. So if we pull out the drive, I'm going to pull out that other USB drive as well. But now when we insert in our Halo cartridge here, can see that it has the right logo, drive name, and it is now loading up. And there we go. So that is now all set and good to go. So there you have it, a way to make, air quotes, physical PC games that will auto-launch when inserted, just like an older console. It's a ton of fun, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you're gonna be wasting a lot of space on a lot of these because it's cheaper to buy a 128 gig SSD than smaller SSDs, so for very small games, as well as SD cards, rather. But for smaller games, like, you're barely going to be using up any space. So, I mean, 32 gig SD card for a 137 megabyte game like Battle for Naboo, it's crazy the amount of space you're wasting, but honestly, it's still really cool. I want to look into maybe making user interface to select different games to make multi-card games for like Command & Conquer or something. That would be really fun, but it's just fun to have the project working like this in the here and now. Like, this is exactly what I wanted for it. I'm able to move these between my desktop and tablet at will. It's really cool. I could even launch these on the ROG Ally if I wanted to. It's a little more convoluted on that since it's a handheld, but for those dedicated stations, it's really nice. Again, it's going to really depend on the game how portable it is. So for things like Battle for Naboo, you can get the registry entry, and that way you can make it portable. It saves directly onto the install directory for the game, which is really nice. Some GOG games will have their save directory set to the install directory, depending on the age of the game, so those are also really portable. But that's not always the case. So honestly, Steam is really one of the nicer methods because of cloud saves. You can easily move these between computers, and it will have everything the way it needs to be with Steam Cloud Sync. And I mean, you might be able to do that with GOG Galaxy as well. I just haven't tried. But yeah, I hope this has explained the process in a way that makes sense. And if you're interested in this type of project, I hope that this helps you out. But thank you so much as always for watching today's video. Really means the world to me that you spend even a minute of time on this channel. Now here at the end, just a couple of favors to ask. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit that thumbs up, thumbs down button depending on how much you like today's tutorial, as well as hitting that sub button and notification bell so you can see when new videos go live on the channel. Loads of content always coming your way, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. And for anyone interested in further helping support the channel to keep it going, you can check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, as every little bit helps keep us going and bringing videos like this to all of you. Big shout out to all of our current backers, could not do it without you. But until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, y'all stay awesome, keep on gaming, and we'll see you back next video.